Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chess. Today we are going to discuss the next topic, that is combination. So I am going to discuss the steps which we can use for solving position. So as we know, combination is a series of forced moves. So when we make the moves in such a way that opponent's reply is more or less forced, that is what we mean by combination. So if we extend the definition further, what it says, combination is a series of forced moves which usually begins with a sacrifice, and it has three objectives: either to get a winning position, or material advantage, or to checkmate the opponent's king. So in this topic I will be showing you how we can identify the combination, what are the steps we should follow to solve any combination. Identifying part we have discussed a lot. We mostly see the king safety and activity. Now I have done various things: spin, fork, deflection, double attack, destroying the defender, overloaded piece, okay, and so on, interference, clearance, okay. Now what we will do here, these are all mixed positions. In most positions, 1, 2 or 3 themes are running across simultaneously. So we will try to identify which theme is happening, how to identify. Let's get started with the first position. It's black to play. So the first step when we look at any position is generally what people do, they count the pieces. Nothing wrong in it. We should see all the pieces where they are placed. Some pieces in the corner, some are centrally placed, some are active, they are ahead. Okay, this is the first step. So we see all the pieces. That time we count the pieces. Second step, we see the attacks and supports. So we count the attacks and supports. Many people club this together. When they see the pieces, that time itself, they not only see king safety, activity, where the pieces are, they count the attacks and supports also. But we can do it separately. Like for example here, queen attacks b2. Queen attacks the squares near the king. The squares near the king are specially very important because the attack on those squares are more important than any other attack. The knight attacks e2. Knight not only attacks the piece, but it is attacking squares near the king. So g2 and e2. Okay. So second step was to count attacks and supports. Third is to identify the weakness. So when we count attacks and supports, the moment we see the supports, we realize who are the defenders. And when we use the term defender, three things come to mind instantly: destroying the defender, deflection, okay, we can pin the defender, and we can interfere the defender. So actually 4 things which we have discussed. These are the 4 things which should come to our mind. After seeing the weakness, we see the relationship between the pieces. Relationship between the pieces means whether the pieces are like here, placed in the same line, okay, same diagonal, whether they are at the range of knight fork, etc. We will be discussing more positions and we will talk about them. After doing these 4 steps, then we try to find the moves we fight using check capture attack, especially in the middle game. There is the 4th element also. We will discuss about it later. And once we think of the moves, we reach second position, new position after our first move. And the moment we reach a new position after our first move, we again follow the first 5 steps which I told you just now. So I will be doing these positions following this method, and we will see, we will be eventually able to solve very difficult positions also if we practice this method systematically. So we could call this position solving. We are doing combinations. We are trying to use mixed combinations, means identify themes. Okay, let's get started with the first position. Already I told you some attacks and supports. What black noted, when the knight goes to e2, the knight attacks the queen, right? and the knight is also attacking g1. So from e2 square, we see a relation happening here. The squares c1 and g1 are coming at the range of knight fork. So immediately black must have understood the squares which are weak already we know, f2 and g1. b2 is attacked, b2 is far away from the king. Second, what comes to mind, the move knight h3 which attacks g1 and f2. But black saw that he can force the moves in the line qg1 check. Okay, see, combination, series of forced moves. After qg1, forced to take. Secondly, we made a sacrifice also. It usually begins with a sacrifice. Need not be all the time it is sacrifice. So, queen g1, king g1, knight e2 check, attacking the king and queen both, and after move like king f2 attacking the knight c1. And sometimes what happens, the knight gets trapped in the corner, but here knight attacks a2, and after any move like a3, we can take ba, and the knight can escape from the b3 square. The knight will not get trapped here. Let's play the moves. So qg1 check, king takes g1 forced, knight e2 check, king f1, knight c1. Okay, many will say that this position was very easy, but our initial steps are small ones. Gradually we will discuss more and more difficult positions using the same method. Here we have the next position, which is white to play. Same way we will try to follow the steps and try to identify which theme is most applicable over here. So first we will start by seeing the attacks and supports. Our white pieces are centrally placed. Background weakness is there. Blacks, we can say that the queen is far away from his king side, and what we see overall activity wise, white is more active than black. White's two pieces have entered the opponent's territory and queen is eyeing the 7th rank. Now we will go on to seeing the attacks and supports. We will immediately see that queen attacks f7, queen attacks a8. Rook is indirectly trying to attack the f7 pawn. Among support, what we see, king is defender of f7, e8 rook defends a8, and the g7 bishop attacks the e5 pawn. Queen is capable of attacking a2 and c4, and it can be useful if white lifts the rook from the first rank. By seeing this much only, we can immediately find some candidate moves, because we understood what are the weakness, what is the relationship in the position. So two relationships which we got. One, the pieces are here on the same line, and second, we got the relation here. The rook is attacking through the bishop on f7, g7, h7 squares. So seeing through the pieces is very important. Candidate moves which come to mind: queen f7 check followed by bishop's discovered check. Second, we see queen a8, but then we see rook takes a8. White was able to solve the position very easily because he understood that the rook on e8 is the defender and the weakness is f7. So two weaknesses which he found, 8 and f7, and white got the move bishop d8 using this method. So what the bishop does from d8, it helps the rook attack f7, and here we create an interference between the rooks. So how we use the relationship between the pieces? One, we used discovered attack, that is we use clearance, and second we use interference for the opponent's pieces. After bd8, there is absolutely no defense, because if any move like queen f5 supporting f7, then queen takes a8. So if any move is played to defend f7, then a8 is lost. And if rook takes d8, then we simply see that queen f7 check, king h8, and qg7 checkmates. So black is at least going to lose the rook on 8 and white 1. Let's look at the next position here. It is black to play. We'll try to follow the same steps again. First, when we look at the pieces, we again immediately know that black's queen is very active. Rook is on the open file. The bishop is guarding square near the white king. So activity wise we can say black is way better than white. White rook is strongly placed on the 7th rank. The queen is unable to join near the king side and the knight on g1 is pinned. So this is what information we will collect when we first see the position. King's FT we come to know white king has only one place to move. Same we can say about black, but after checks are there, black king has lot of space after rook d8 check. White king as it is has less space. Then we see weakness. So what we see after we saw all the pieces. Now we will count attacks and supports. We have one attack on h2. We have one attack on g1. We have two attacks on the f2 square. This is what the king is having only one place to move and the h2 square is weak. Then we move on to next step. We see the relationship between the pieces. We see that the knight is pinned, the queens attack each other, and we see that h2 and the e2 squares are related. So black got the first move very easily. Candidate moves, what we can see, queen into e2, qg1 which is a check, and to attack the weakness which is h2, any square near the king where we already have attack is a weakness. Okay, so here king safety or king not having place is a real weakness. Black got the move rook f2, and after rook f2 we see that there is no defense whatsoever. White can try two things. One, if he takes the queen, it's very easy. Rook h2 mates. White can start giving checks. So rook d8 check. This is what we need to calculate when playing rook f2. After which king g7, king has to sidestep the rook checks properly. Rook d7 check, and here we should note that we should not move the king in such a way so that the queen is able to, white queen is able to give check. So here, although we can see play the move king f8 very easily, we see that only check that is there is queen f3 and queen f2, both of which lose the queen, and this queen has no other check. And after the move rook d8, we can just play the king to e7, and we see that the checks are stopped. There are no more checks. Rook d7 check can be simply captured. Rook d7, kd7, queen d3 check is there. But after king c7, it is becoming a no check position. There is waiting threat on h2 which cannot be stopped. So this position is losing for white. So let's look at the last position quickly. Same way, again we will see all the pieces. Moment we see the pieces, we come to know that white queen and rook are attacking to the squares which are near to the king. So rook attacks f8, g7 and h7. Immediately we will have the weaknesses g7, h7 and f8. These will be the weak squares. Moreover, we will say h7 is more weaker, queen is on the white square. We can then bring more attacks, is more liable to become weak. g7 cannot be attacked by the queen. f8 is still guarded by queen and king both. We see that white has an extra pawn. So when looking at the position, we see that white pieces are more or less attacking at one place, that is near the king. But we see the black queen and rook, they are a bit scattered. They are not attacking at any one single point, nor they are defending at a single point. After seeing the pieces, we count attacks and support. On f8 we counted 2 attacks, 2 supports. Then we saw in g7 and h7 both 1 attack, 1 support. Another thing what we noted, blacks and the queen both are unsupported. I told you the square h7 is weak and the rook on e6, see they are in a relation, both are falling on the white square. So now we will be able to identify weaknesses. We got h7 weak, e6 weak, unsupported, and now we will try to find the moves. Okay, so we got relationship, we got the weakness, we saw the defender also. In this position we see king is the only defender, the rook is undefended. So white thinks of the move queen h3. So what are the candidate moves we can say? One is rook h7, immediately jumping to the weakness. After rook h7, threat is queen f7 mate. So king h7 almost forced. But then after queen h3 check, kg7, we can only get the rook back. Even then, many will say that queen endgame is still good for white. Of course, it's good for white. We managed to trade the rooks, but the only problem there is the queen endgame is most difficult to convert. White tried to think other way around now. First queen h3. Now the threat is qh7 mate. And only way here to stop qh7 mate is the move king f7. So by king f7 what happens? Black stops mate on h7 and black protects the rook on e6. But what happens? He allows qh7 check. So after the move qh3, king f7, qh7 check, king f8 or e8, then queen h8 check, king moves to d7, queen takes the queen and white gets a winning position. Let's play the moves. Queen h3. This queen h3 move otherwise is not very easy to spot. If we train our mind to see the pieces this way, finding relationship and weakness, finding of candidate moves becomes easier. So after qh3, king f7 forced, qh7 check, king e8 or f8 wherever, queen h8 check, kd7 and queen b8 and white wins the game. So I hope you are enjoying these lessons. Do like, share and subscribe the channel. Thanks for your time.